Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It doesn't feel so happy outside with the snow again, but we're going to fake it till we make it, team, and just know that sunshine has to be coming back eventually, hopefully one day. In the meantime, I will distract you with our MEL3E, the Grade 11 Math for Everyday Life course. My name is Kobe Flatt, and every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 11, I go through the MEL3E course curriculum material. Remember, there are two ways to be completing this course in order to earn the credit. You can do it as an independent learning course where you take the material, you read it to yourself, you're kind of teaching yourself as you go through it, completing the key questions, and submitting them to me for grading. The other option is tuning in to listen to our classes on Radio Zoom. This is where we go through all the exact same material. We're going through the IL booklet. I am giving a little bit of background, diving further into the course concepts to give you a better understanding. We go through extra examples and practice questions to ensure that you are grasping the ideas. We are at the beginning of our third week. Our Radio Zoom schedule is a 9-week schedule. The IL booklet, you get to work through at your own pace, do what you can when you can. Now, that having been said, you can have a hybrid of the two. You can be doing the IL booklet and jumping into the Radio Zoom classes when you feel like you need help with a concept, if there's a particular lesson that you're struggling with. All of these classes are recorded and posted to our WASA YouTube channel as well as my Google Classroom. If you start with the Radio Zoom and you're feeling pretty confident, you want to move ahead in the IL booklet, feel free to do so. I have taught this course before, so there are lessons from last year already posted to my Google Classroom for you to check out if you get ahead of us. That having been said, today we are going to finish lesson 5. We first explored the coin combinations. We wanted to learn how to make change efficiently because we know that even though you might have access to a cash register or the calculator and it's telling you how much change the customer receives, it doesn't tell you how to make that change. So it's a wonderful skill to have that you can be continuing to practice with even if you are not working retail or behind a cash register. We talked about provincial sales tax. We started to get into calculating tax for each province. That's where we are going to pick up today. We'll then move into discount sale prices and after tax costs. Remember, we want to pay attention to what the question is actually asking us. Because we're talking about sales tax, it's important to know that there are two types of sales tax levied in Canada. There are the provincial sales tax, the PST, which is levied by the provinces, and there are goods and services tax. This is GST and it applies nationally. Now, some provinces have combined PST and GST and created HST, which is the harmonized sales tax. Now, every province except Alberta has implemented either PST or HST. Now, that's just the provinces. The territories have no territorial sales tax. Only GST is collected. The 3 northern jurisdictions are heavily subsidized by the federal government. Their residents receive additional tax concessions due to the high cost of living in the north. So if you are asked about any of the territories, you know it is going to be a 0% for PST. On page 45 of your IL booklet, you will see the chart that breaks down each province and territory's sales tax, the provincial sales tax. We talked yesterday that British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba have 7%. We discussed how none of the territories have PST, as well as Alberta as the only province not having any. Quebec has 7.5%. PEI has 10%. The remaining provinces have HST. All of the other provinces have 15% except for Ontario. We have 13% HST. As you're working your way through this lesson, it will specifically ask how much does an item cost in a certain province. You are going to want to go back and reference page 45 to find out what the province's PST is, their provincial sales tax. If it doesn't say, if you're going through and you come across a key question that just says calculate HST, calculate the sales tax, then assume it's Ontario's 13% of HST because we are in Ontario. Let that be a little note. If you're confused, you can just assume HST here in Ontario if it doesn't state otherwise. At the end of yesterday's lesson, we were calculating PST for a digital camera bought in 3 different provinces, territories. I want to highlight again how important it is to make sure you read the question carefully. We worked through this problem yesterday. If you bought a digital camera for $89.97, what would the PST be in British Columbia? Yesterday we calculated, going back to page 45, we see that British Columbia has a PST, has a provincial sales tax of 7%. Remember, we first have to calculate it as a decimal, so we divide it by 100, which gives us 0.07. We could multiply that then by the price of the camera. When you calculate 0.07 times $89.97, we got $6 and always round up. It rounded up to 30 cents. When we're dealing with money, we do 2 decimal places. Now this is where it's important to read. It just wants to know the PST. So we could say, therefore, the PST in British Columbia is $6.30 on a $90 digital camera. We did not do a therefore statement yesterday, and you don't have to. I just want to show the actual answer to the actual question, which is just the PST. Then we saw none of it, which is a territory. It's 0%, so we don't have to calculate anything. Therefore, the PST is 0 because it's only asking for PST. If you want to practice and you didn't get a chance to yesterday, go ahead and try the support question. We left off yesterday on goods and service, and I kind of rushed through it thinking I'd be able to squeeze everything in before the end of class, and that was silly. So today we're going to start as if it's fresh. We're going to talk about goods and services tax, which can be found on page 47. We spoke yesterday to the federal GST rate as 5%, which came into effect on January 1st, 2008. And this was applied to purchases all over Canada. However, there are some exemptions. The following items are just some examples of goods and services which we do not pay GST or HST. And that's on those basic groceries, such as milk, bread, and vegetables. You cannot buy candy tax-free. There will be taxes on candy, but those basic necessity groceries, milk, bread, vegetables, you don't pay HST on. It's mainly the essentials, the things that you need. Medical devices, such as hearing aids, artificial teeth, healthcare, medical, dental services, legal aid services. Most childcare and education services are tax exempt. There's no HST on them, but you do want to pay attention. If it's a private school, for instance, you will most likely be paying on that. We ended here, so I'd like to take some time to go through and practice an example that I have on the board. Remember, if you ever want to follow along, you can look at our Zoom link and join us for being able to see the slides in real time as we go. If you need that Zoom link, please reach out to myself or your DEC. So here we have example 5 that says, in Saskatchewan you are buying a pair of rollerblades for $152.45. Including tax, what do you actually pay? Here is a big, we want to know, including tax, what do you actually pay? The last question wanted to know just the provincial sales tax. This one wants to know everything, so keep that in mind as we go through. We're going to reference page 45 to find out what the PST in Saskatchewan is. It tells us that PST is 7%. But remember, GST also gets applied, and GST as of 2008, 5%. So we can do this two ways. You can add them together, which is what the province of Ontario naturally does when they have their harmonized sales tax. We get our 13%. But for Saskatchewan, we can also calculate them separately. First, we need to put it into a decimal. So we do 7 divided by 100. We're moving that decimal place 2 spots, giving us 0.07. Now that we have our percentage, we can multiply it, now that we have a decimal, by the cost of the item. So here the cost of rollerblades, $152.45. We want to type it in how we've written it. So if you're going to do the conversion and do 0.07, type that into your calculator. Let's try that. 0.07, there we go, times $152.45. Remember, we're dealing with money, so we always want to include our unit of measurement. In this case, it's the $sign, and we always round to 2 decimal places. Because it's 10.6715, that third digit is not strong enough, so it stays at 67 cents. That's just the PST. The GST is 5 divided by 100. Now, if you want to say 5% of $152.45, then that is what you can be typing into your calculator. You can, remember on Desmos, you can say 5% and it comes up as 5% of $152.45. We get 7.622, not strong enough, so it stays at 62 cents. If you wanted, like I said before, you can combine them first if it's asking for the total. If it's asking for the total, you can combine them. We can say 7 plus 5 is 12, so what is 12% of $152.45? If that's the way you're going to do it, make sure you write it as that because your numbers can be off by just a few cents. We want to make sure that we are showing all of our steps, all of our thinking, so that if something's wrong, if it's a calculation error, you can see a few times I've typed on Desmos and it hasn't caught my decimal, or it's picked the wrong number, I hit 4 instead of 1. That way I'll know you had it right, it was just a simple slip of the calculator. We want to add it all up because it's asking for the total, the actual amount that we're paying, including the taxes. If it wanted us to break down PST and GST and then the total, you want to show each one. It just wants to know overall what we pay, so you are okay to just do 12% of. So we're going to add the taxes. We want to add $10.67 plus $7.62. We are paying $18.29 in taxes. And I'll show you that if you do, 12% of $152.45, see, you get $18.29. So it's the same. You can do it one way or the other if it's asking for total. But that's just the taxes. So this is total taxes. We want to know how much you actually pay, everything together. So we're going to add the cost of the item plus total taxes. The cost of the item, the rollerblades, are $152.45 plus our taxes, $18.29. $18.29 plus $152.45. We get a total of $170.74. Now this one is a word problem, so we do have to include a therefore statement. Therefore, the total cost, or remember, you can always use part of the question in the answer. Therefore, you actually pay of the rollerblades would be $170.74. Make sure to include your unit of measurement, which is the dollar sign in this case. And then always, good practice, go back and check. In Saskatchewan, you are buying a pair of rollerblades for $152.45, including tax. What do you actually pay? You actually pay $170.74 with all the taxes. Yes, yes, yes. Wonderful. So we would get full marks for showing all of our work, calculating each tax, and adding it all together. If you want a little bit more practice, you can go ahead and turn to page 48, where you can complete support question number 7. If you want to make sure that you're on the right track, you can always flip to the back of the unit. After each unit are the support question answers. You can see if you're on the right track. You can see if you're doing it right. You can feel confident and then move on if you feel like you've got it. We are going to move on. We are going to look at harmonized sales tax. The harmonized sales tax that we talked a little bit about yesterday is HST. It's the combination of federal and provincial taxes that are on goods and services in 5 Canadian provinces. Every province who has combined it and created HST pays 15% except for Ontario. We are 13%. Now the concept behind HST was to streamline the recording and combining them into a single uniform levy across Canada. Rather than first breaking up the GST and then breaking up the PST, it was let's just combine it, make it easy, streamline it. We alluded to some of those exemptions. There are similar goods and services to GST that are exempt from HST as well. When we get into calculating HST, there are two methods for doing so. The first method is you want to calculate 13%. Excuse me. Let's try that again. You want to calculate 13% tax, and then you add it to the original price. You're figuring out just the tax and adding it to the sales item. For instance, if we had a book that was $19.80, we might want to calculate HST using 13%. You can put it into your calculator as 13% of, you do 13, you do your percentage button, and you type in $19.80. 13% of $19.80 equals $2.57. You can also put 13% into a decimal place. If we were to do 13 divided by 100, you would get 0.13. When we multiply that by $19.80, and we get the same. We get $2.57. So that one is just a preference. How do you want to calculate the tax? But you'll see that all we did was calculate the tax. So then we would have to add to the original price. We would then have to say, okay, the original price, the book, is $19.80. The taxes are $2.57. So if I want to buy this book, I'm going to have $22.37 on me or in my account, because the book in total is going to cost $22.37. Now that's a few different steps. First you're figuring out tax, then you're adding it to the total. So there's a second method. The second method is to calculate 113% all at once. If I want to do 113% of $19.80, I could type that straight into my calculator. What is 113% of $19.80? You'll see we get $22.37. That is exactly what we calculated in step one's method, but we didn't have to go through finding the tax first. If you don't like using that percent button, or your calculator, it's a little bit sticky, whatever it might be, and your preference is to find the decimal, remember you can do 113 divided by 100. We have our decimal place, we move it 2, we get 1.13 times $19.80. If we do 1.13 times $19.80, we get $22.37. See how it all comes together? It's all the same. It's 22.37, 22.37, 22.37. Doesn't matter which way you calculate it, you will get the same answer. The difference is in the amount of steps you use to get there. It's your preference. Do you want to just skip right to the end? Skipping to the end is great for if it's asking what you actually pay, if it's asking for the total. If it needs you to break it down and you have to show the amount of taxes, don't use method 2. Don't calculate 113% all at once. If you have to show what the taxes are, you're going to need to show method 1, first find the tax, and then add it together. But if you just want to know, maybe you're in the store and remember, this is math for everyday life. We want to make it applicable. I'm in the store. I see a new pair of shoes for $59.65. And I'm thinking, okay, do I have enough on me? I can, in my calculator on my phone, I can do 1.13 times $59.65 and know that I have to have $67.40 on me. That's why, or when, you might want to calculate it all at once. If you just need to know how much money do I need to have, what is this going to cost me? If I ask a friend to run to Dryden for me to pick up a package of toilet paper that's it's on sale for, oh my gosh, this is really embarrassing. I don't know how much toilet paper costs. I just put it in the cart with everything else because you need it. Point is I need to buy the toilet paper, and I ask a friend to grab it for me, and I need to give them the money. I would just multiply it by 113% so that I give them the amount that they're going to need to pay for it. But remember, if you are doing a question and it asks for the tax, make sure you're breaking it apart so that you show all of the steps to get full marks. Let's practice an example. Example 6 asks us to calculate the HST and the total cost of an iPhone 13 with the price of $1,099. Here it's specifically telling us what we need to do, which is why we need to read the question carefully. We need to find the HST and the total cost. Therefore, we cannot use method 2. I cannot just jump straight to 113% because I have to show what the HST is. It's not telling me where I'm buying this. It's not telling me if I'm in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or Ontario. I know it's HST, so I know it has to be one of those, but I don't know if I'm going to apply 13% or 15%. Because it's not telling me, I'm going to go with where we are. We're in Ontario, so assume then that we're using 13%. Here we go. What is 13% of $1,099? Remember, you can also write it as 0.13 times $1,099. What is 13% of $1,099? I get $142.87. That's my HST. So the total cost is selling price plus tax. So the selling price is $1,099, tax $142.87. I want to find what is the final, actual, overall total cost. I can see that if I want this iPhone 13, I am going to have to pay $1,241.87. You can double check your work. You can go now and say what is 113% of $1,099, and we can see that yes, we calculated it correctly. It is $1,241.87. It's a word problem, so we're going to need a therefore statement. Therefore, the iPhone 13 will have $142.87 in tax, meaning the total cost will be $1,241.87. We have calculated HST. We found the tax. We found the total by adding it all together. We double checked our work and we have included our therefore statement. That will get us full marks for this question. If you're still not confident and you want a little bit more practice, turn to page 50 of your IL book and try the support questions 8 and 9. They work through the different sales tax. You can see that it breaks it down to be finding just the amount of HST. It doesn't specifically say, so you're going to use Ontario. Ding, 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 ding. Make sure you're doing 13%. We are going to move on. If I can get the slide to change, here we go. We are going to practice some estimations. Now, this is nice practice for if you're sitting in the store and there is a big sale rack that's caught your attention and you want to find out what the discounted item could be. We're going to go through two different methods for finding sales discounts. Our practice question has Julie. Julie is purchasing a tennis racket during a big summer sale. It is advertised at 40% off the regular price of $165.99. Julie is walking through the store and she wants the tennis racket. She's wondering if she's got enough for this one now that it's on sale at 40% off. There are two different methods that Julie can use to figure out what the new sale price would be. Method one is when you take 40% off the price and you subtract it from the regular price. If the regular price is $165.99, we want to find what is 40% of that. Remember, 40% of means that we are multiplying. When we're multiplying, we can use the decimal. 40 divided by 100 is 0.40. If you're standing there in the store and you've got your smartphone and you want to calculate, you can do your 40% button. Otherwise, you can use your smartphone and you can type in what is 0.40 times $165.99. The discount amount would then be $66. Now here we have decimal 396. Remember, money is to two decimal places. That third digit, that 6, is strong enough to bump our 9 up. So we round up to $66.40. So that's just the discounted price. So method one, we calculate the 40% of the price. Now we have to subtract. We have to take $66.40 off of the regular price, which means the discount is $66.40. The new price would be $165.99 minus the discount price of $66.40. What do we get when we calculate $165.99 minus $66.40? The new price would be $99.59. So that's a great sale. It's a great discount. We're taking $66.40 off of the regular price. Julie would only need now to pay $99.59. But there's a second way. The second way, much like how we had two ways to calculate HST, you can go method one, which was to calculate 13% and then add. Here, our method one is very similar because we're taking 40% and then we're subtracting. Method 2 for HST was to just skip right ahead, calculate 113%, and you get the total. Our method 2 is a lot like that. We know that 100% is full price. If we're taking off 40%, that leaves us with 60% that we have to pay. Because we know that 60% is what we have to pay, let's just jump to what is 60%. We can find out $165.99 is that regular price. This time we're going to multiply by 0.60. Remember that's 60%. So what is 0.60 times $165.99? We get $99.59. Oh, see? Oh. Here it is. We get the same end result. We get the same price. Method 1 was just one extra step where you take off the 40%, you're finding that discounted amount and you're subtracting it from the regular. The second method is just going straight to what do I have to pay. In order to find what you have to pay, you need to find out what's remaining. If a regular price item is 100% and we're taking away 40%, I'm left with needing to pay 60%. So I can calculate $165.99 times 60% or 60% of or 0.60. And that's how I know what the sale item is, what the discounted amount is. So it's completely up to you, your preference, your situation. Am I standing in the store and I just need to know how much money I've got to have on me? Or am I working through a math problem that says first find the discounted price, then find the total? And spoiler alert, that is what you have to do for your lesson 4 key question. It is going to ask you to first find the discounted price and then find the actual new sales amount. There is a section of your IL booklet that can be found at the bottom of page 53 that talks about estimating. This is in there for practical purposes, for you to take with you to learn about in your everyday life. That's the beautiful thing about this course. MEL3E is truly math for everyday life. So if you find yourself in a store and you don't have a calculator or your phone's gone dead and you want to find out if you have enough money to buy the new discounted item, you can always use estimating practices. If you're trying to find a discount, you can work with numbers that are more manageable, which we talked about last class. When you're estimating, if something is $8.99, I might want to bump it up to 10 because the number 10 is more manageable to work with than $8.99. The same then is true for when you are estimating discounted sales price. If the regular price is $58.89, I might round it up to $60 because it's easier for me to take 30% off of 60 than for me to try to do that mental math in my head with decimals. The same goes for when you are trying to apply HST. when you're adding the tax on as opposed to a discount taking it off, you can break it up into 10% and then to use that last 3 you can find a third of. I have actually taken the key question out of the IL booklet this new term, but I left the concept and theory in because it is nice to know. It is nice to have that skill, but that section now is just for funsies and doesn't apply to a key question. I wanted to throw that out there. Because I think it's still a good skill, I still have it in today's lesson for practicing so that you can know how to do it for when you need to, if you need to. We don't always want to be reliant upon a calculator. We talked about making change. The cash register can tell you how much change, but it can't tell you what bills and coins. Let's be honest, where we live, we get a lot of power outages, and you don't even always have the reliability of a cash register. So it's good to know how to do it the old school way, if you will. So here, my next slide is finding sales tax on discounted items. Sales tax is always added after the discount is removed. What is the total cost of a netbook computer that is 20% off the usual price of $299? First you find your discount, then you find the tax. So this one is very important in the step in which you lay it out. You want to be mindful that tax gets added after. So the first thing we have to do, step 1, is find out what our discount is. What is the total cost of a netbook computer that is 20% off? So we find, step 1, we find 20% of, and I should make this smaller so that I've got more room to write. Here we are, step 1. Oh boy. There we go. We want to know 20% of $299. So we can say 0.20 times $299. What is 20% of $299? Which we can also write as 0.20 times 299. You can either do the decimal 00 or not. It's just a placeholder at that point. You'll see that it comes out to $59.80. Now, we used method 1. We're taking off that discounted price, which means step 2 then is to subtract $59.80 from the regular price of $299. So what is $299 minus $59.80? We have a new sales price of $239.20. All we've done is calculated the discount. Next, we have to apply the tax. Depending on where we are, we want to reference page 45 to find out what is PST, what is the GST, or what is the HST. This question doesn't tell us where we're buying the netbook, therefore we assume it's Ontario and it's 13% HST. What is the total cost of the netbook? Well, the sale price is $239.20. But now we still have to pay tax on that. We don't just get it for $239.20. We still have to apply HST. So that's the 113%. That's the 13%. We can do 0.13, or we can do 1.13 if we want to just get to the answer. If it's asking us what is the tax on the new price, we have to do method 1 to show the tax. If it's asking what is the total, we can just skip to method 2 and jump to the end where it tells us how much it's going to cost. So I can do the answer. I can do $239.20 times 1.13. I am going to have to pay after tax. The total is $270.30. It's still cheaper, obviously, than the regular price, $299. My sales price is $239.20, but I have to still pay HST. So with the taxes then, it's $270.30. In your key question, it is going to want to know all of the taxes. So what we're going to do is show you what you'll have to do for your key question. For your key question, you are going to show step 1, discount amount. Step 2, find sale price. Step 3, calculate tax. So step 3 is to find 0.13, that is our HST, times $239.20. 0.13 times $239.20 tells me that we are paying $31.10 in taxes. That's HST. Then step 4 is to find total cost. So that's my sale price of $239.20 plus HST of $31.10. I'm going to add them together. $239. Oh my goodness, there we go. $239.20 plus $31.10 equals $270.30. We're showing each step. 1, discount amount. 2, sale price. 3, amount of tax. And 4, total cost. When you are completing your key question on page 57, specifically question number 5, calculate the HST on each item. That is just separating to find the tax and then the total. And then number 6 goes one step further, and it wants you to calculate the discount and the sale price, then calculate the total price with HST. So this example that I have on the board right now is for completing question 6. You want to work through all 4 of these steps to get full marks in question 6. So if you need to, you can go back and watch this recording. You can pause it. You can work your way through each step and apply it to the 3 products, not 4. There are 3 products on page 58. If you still want extra practice, you can try support question number 10 on page 52. Check the support question answers in the back. When you're on the right track and you're feeling confident, go ahead and try those key questions. If you're still unsure, you can go back and watch the recording again, or you can reach out to me if you have any other questions. And that is it for lesson 5, team. We talked about making purchases. We learned how to make change. We used the counting up method. We learned how to get the fewest coins possible. That sometimes it means overpaying in the sense of paying more than is needed in order to get the fewest coins possible back. We learned how to use the most coins to pay and how to receive the least coins in return. Then lesson 5 took us into sales tax. We talked about PST, GST, and HST. We learned that each province and territory has their own tax rate. Looking to find out what those are, you turn to page 45 and use that chart. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's all the time we have for today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.